Okay, hello world. This is Burner again. I got cut off my last video, which actually kind of works out because I said that I was going to be um, about identity and about agenda, and it actually ended right before I was going to get it into. It was going to be a perfect segue into what I was talking about for identity. So this will be the second part of that volume, of the volume for it'll be identity and agenda. I think that the way Earthlings or people that are, I think the difference between us, the biggest divide is they say it's communication, but I actually think that even us, the high functioning people on the autism scale, or those with Aspergers that will probably be that term might be phased out, but I think we'll always hold on to it. Is is our views of like status and agenda and stuff like that, or our motivations in life, and the reason why sometimes we get misunderstood and stuff. Like, what motivates us is not what motivates pretty much everybody else. And I think it's also why a lot of times we're misunderstood, or like people will meet us and might initially hate us and then like us, or maybe it'll go the other way around. They'll like us and then they'll hate us. Like, I've had people meet me and immediately, like, at first think I have a very dominant personality. Then later on, they're like, okay, I mistaked you. You're actually very, like, more passive or submissive. And I don't think I'm any of those things. It depends on, I think the way I interact with the world is not ever me. There is exactly what it is. I think the reason why people think that we're literal creatures and that we're too direct and we're sometimes mean is because we say things exactly how we are. We don't have an agenda. What we say or do is not us doing it because we want credit for something, or we want to move up in the world, or because we want to win or lose, or any of that. That's just not how we see things. And I think sometimes it will be where if people have a hard time, they'll be viewed maybe as lazy, or we're a job, or we're like, people will be like, you have a genius level IQ, why don't you have a degree in this, and everything, because those things aren't as significant to us. Like, we might have degrees and things or credentials, but that just happened to align with our obsessions at that time, not because the degree or maybe that's why we have partial degrees. Like, they see these all as symptoms of what we're having, and they're like problems, but we see them as like, that's just how we live our lives. And I mean, I remember not that long ago, I was talking to Kyle. I was telling him that I thought that, like, it bothered me. I was like, why can't we be in a society like that isn't based on money at all? Like, why can't it be just like people? Like, I think everybody would want to learn, and of course this is before I knew this about myself. If they weren't pressured to have to learn, if they could just learn whatever they wanted to learn, and then whatever came out of that would be what they contributed, and like, but there'd be no pressure, and they could just learn whatever they wanted. And he's like, a society would like that. He's like, who's gonna work at, like, the store that's gonna make your shoes, or like do whatever? I'm like, well, there has to be someone who's obsessed with the shoes. He's like, well, how will that all, and he kept poking holes in my little utopia world. But I realize now that the reason for that is, like, because, like, I don't want, like, I even going back, I'm gonna tell a couple of stories, and I feel like this will maybe for all you Earthlings neurotypicals that are out there, maybe this will help give you some perspective. It probably won't, because every time I try to explain things to one of you, you automatically start up, like, attributing one of your labels, or one of your agendas, or one of your are projecting your own whatever onto what I'm saying. But I'm going to try to say it as succinctly and everything as possible, and give you some experiences that maybe will give you some perspective. I hope that it will. Okay, one is, like, when I was working at my last company in biotech, I got a woman boss, and I was very excited to have her. And the second day I started working for her, she told me that she didn't like me, that she knew what I was up to, and I wasn't going to fly with her, and she didn't like me, and I was flabbergasted. I was like, I didn't know what she was talking about, and I was really upset, and it really hurt me, and I actually not in front of her, but I cried later on about it, and like, no, after this happened, she was very, very mean to me all the time, and no matter what I did to try to fix this, like, it didn't change it. She kept, like, she would just kept thinking I was doing things, and she would put me in these really uncomfortable positions, or she'd, like sometimes, I won't even get into all this. Maybe I'll do a video that actually focuses on this whole experience, but I don't want to really, relive it right now. So, I'm just gonna say that I could just tell that I didn't see a way out for myself. I just knew she hated me, and I was very much intimidated by her, and I didn't understand why I upset her so much. So I remember, like, a lot of times I was working late, and the people that worked overnight were very, very nice. And they would always be like, Brenda, you should come work with us, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do overnights and stuff. And but then I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I would be away from her, and there are less people that work at night, and I could just do my job. And because I like data and analyzing the stuff, and I like looking for the trends and finding problems in the systems, and I'm very good at that part. And I knew at nighttime I wouldn't have to deal with that many people, and it sounded so much better in my head. And so I went to my director, and I told him that I wanted to do this, and then I made sure I added on there that I knew there was a 35% differential, and I was like, there's 35% differential, and he immediately saw through what I was trying to do, and he's like, is your new boss harassing you? And I was like, no, it has nothing. He's like, because nobody wants to go overnight unless, like, they have kids, like there's some schedule issue or whatever. Like, nobody, like, wants to work overnight. Like, nobody just, like, all of a sudden, if they have everything's going well for them during the day, nobody's, like, just volunteers out of nowhere to work overnight. I'm like, you don't have them be, nobody, that's exactly it. That's why you should have me, is you have so hard to get people to work overnight. And he was skeptical, but he let me go, and I didn't want to tell her, because I didn't want it to be a tattletale or a rat or whatever, and I didn't want to make waves. I just wanted to get away from her, and I went to overnights, and that has, actually things got way better for a while at first, working overnights. But I feel like that sets up one thing that was very confusing to me, and now looking at it through this lens, knowing this about myself, it put a lot of things into perspective, and I want to assess that, but we'll come back to it. Another situation, when I first started working there was this one guy who, he immediately didn't like me, and I didn't know why he didn't like me, and he was very mean to me, and it was weird, and then all of a sudden became my boss for a while, and I was really scared of him, and all of a sudden, he changed, and he started being nice to me, and one day, I remember he's like, looking through, he's like, it says here that, like, you started going for your master's, like, twice, and you quit, like, why? And I was like, I don't know, it's not that big of a deal. And he's like asking me these questions. He's like, sometimes I see that you second guess yourself and whatever. And he's like, I didn't like you at first. He's like, because I thought that you, like, had this agenda. He's like, but I realized that that's not what it is. He's like, but I can't figure you out. And I was like, I don't know what you need to figure out. I'm like, it was very, very confusing to me. And now I look back on it, I realize, and again, I'm going to assess that, or maybe I'll assess them all overall, where I started realizing, like, all the problems and all the run-ins I've had with people, including my sister over and over, is that everyone always thought that I had some kind of agenda. And I read that book, and I mentioned it in, I think, either the last video or the video before, written by Ian Ford, who's now Star Ford, and it's like a field guide to understanding Earthlings, or something to that nature. And what it is it's he or she, now I believe the author, observations of how, like, an assessment, like, trying to, like, explain to us how you guys think, Earthlings. And one of the things that put everything in perspective is that because your individual mindset are still based on the collective mindset and your status within that whole overarching societal viewpoint, you view everything everybody does is to either maintain their where they are, or to rise, or to basically or sort of like maybe you see somebody as a challenge or a threat or an obstacle. So it's kind of like like you know, you see everyone as an obstacle or someone to kiss up to get to where you need. So these are all the different things that are happening, and your interactions will be kind of assessed as such. That's crazy to me. Why? So I guess I think what happens is that people misinterpret things, and I'm not sure what it is because of course nobody ever tells me what I'm doing that's being misinterpreted. But I'm assuming that the other thing that happens to me a lot of times is people think I'm flirting with them when I'm not flirting with them, or whatever. Because I'm like, but if I like you, you'll know. I'll be very direct. There's no confusion. And I kind of assumed that everybody was like that, but I guess they're not. And so I guess whatever. And I remember the woman who's my boss. The other thing that she used to yell at me about all the time is she always tell me I had conflicting or contradictory body language and I shouldn't sit the way I was sitting and all that. I was like, I'm just sitting in the way that makes me comfortable. And but she never explained what that meant. And I got all these books on body language and stuff, and I thought I was like, sometimes when I needed to, I would do that. Or maybe I was like using the wrong thing for the. But also, like, the other thing people get mad at me is sometimes I'll say like, I view my interaction with people as a game, not because I want to win, but it's more like it's confusing to me, and you guys like seem to all know the rules to these games you're playing, and I don't understand them, and I wish somebody would tell me, but they seem like they're ever changing, and once I learn them, all of a sudden it's different, and I don't know the rules anymore, and I don't know how to keep up with you guys. And but I realize now also all these different terms also have a different meaning in the societal or social mindset. And I realize now that using the word game, the people, they don't think of like a game as like you trying to like understand other people or like there's like a set of rules or whatever. That word has negative connotations and you have to be careful. And that if you use certain words, the people won't see past them and you have to kind of figure out, because they'll have a societal overarching meaning. Even it has multiple meanings, the one that is most predominant for the society will be the only one that they'll hear. And I didn't know that, so I think that a lot of times either the words I was using or the terminology I was using on my body or whatever, or people just didn't know what to take. They couldn't take what I was saying at face value, so they must have thought I had like some other agenda, because it couldn't have been just exactly what I was doing. And I realize now everything pretty much my whole life has always been misinterpreted, and that first started with my relationship with my sister. My relationship with my sister has always been very complicated. I love her, like she's one of the people I love more than anything. But like it's always been this like love-hate relationship, and it's always been because since we were little girls, she was like in competition with me, and I never understood why, and I hated that. And I actually wrote her a letter, which actually kind of told her off, but at the same time, because I was just so angry and I had so much pent-up resentment and frustration with her. But at the end, like the message I wanted her to understand the most was I was like, the Brenda Danielle competition of the world is over. You won. You're married, you have kids, you have this amazing job or whatever. Like, you won. You won this competition. Like, be happy. Can we just be sisters now? And actually, like, with the letter I sent her the sister ring that engraved and said sisters, and I had 2 gold hearts on the side. And I was hoping that, but it didn't. It actually, like, like I said, it's very complicated. Because I realize now that unless your words and your body language and everything fit into a certain expectation, then they're going to be interpreted in other ways or misinterpreted. And I think this is why a lot of times we, especially high function, like I think when you're more low functioning people, you know, because you have a very like viable, like a tangible, like something that is obviously a difficulty in communicating, whereas like maybe you have a learning disability, or maybe you have problems like talking at all, and you communicate best through whatever other medium they've allowed for you, or they're just obvious difficulties that you're having. But I think when you're very high functioning, people have a very high expectation of you. Like, you're able to function this way and all these things, so you must understand this. But those still, because my brain is different, those social nuances and expectations don't mean the same thing to me. And for the reasons why people that are lower functioning, even though have difficulty communicating, I'm not gonna say it's the same for me, but a lot of those same difficulties are still there for me. They just manifest differently because I can use words and I can read and I can interpret all these things. The thing is that I don't interpret is and this is why people, I think that we're naive, especially the women, and that we get taken, and we do probably get taken advantage. I used to always get mad when people told me I took things too literally. I didn't know what they meant, because I'm like, I read literature, I know what a metaphor is, I know what a double entendre is, I know what a pun is, I know what a play on words is. Like, why do you say that I take things literally? Nobody would ever explain it to me. And it would get me really, really frustrated, because I'm like, I'm like, I know what these things are, but then, like, what I found out recently, reading is, like, I take people at their word. How is that crazy? Why would that be wrong? And I realize now, and I start looking back through that lens at my whole life and all the things that I've had problems with, I realize that is exactly what caused me problems, is I didn't understand that what was happening was not what was actually happening. And then I can go into a lot of stories, but before I do, is like even right now with my sister, there's this girl, like, that I don't want to be friends with or whatever, and I'm afraid to not be friends with her because she scares me a little bit. And I talk to my sister, and my sister will keep saying to me, like, I think that you want to be friends with her because you like jabbing at her. And I'm like, but I don't, but I can't talk her into that, because I know, and sometimes I'll not argue with somebody anymore about something because I just realize I can't get them to see things the way I want to see them. But it's frustrating because at the same time, I don't want them to see me in that vein. And it will also affect how I view that person. And my sister's a really good example of this for a number of reasons, that being one of them, that she always thinks that she knows me, and then her interpretation of why I do things is always wrong. And I've used to get into arguments with her about it, but because with her it's definitely always about winning, and I don't want to win the argument with her. I just want her to understand where I'm coming from and why I disagree with her. Not because, and this is why I actually have this whole blog post on, I call it multi-truth. It's kind of trying to be more tolerant of other people's truths, or try to see things from other people's perspective. And this is another thing I think and this is where I think a lot of misconceptions come about with people with autism, about not being able to see things from other people's perspective. It's not that we're incapable of seeing things from other people's perspective. I think when you're younger and you don't understand other people's perspectives, you just don't make the assumption that you know what that is. But if someone is willing to sit down and explain it to you, I think that we don't assume that we understand the other person's perspective. We just understand that we want to gain an understanding of it, but we never assume that we actually understand where that person's coming from, because we can't be in that other person's shoes. So even though I think we're all the times where girls with Aspergers or high functional autism will actually over-empathize with people. It's not that we're actually over-empathizing, it's just that we understand they're in a lot of pain, and it will make us feel very uncomfortable because we don't know what to do with it. Because we know that when we're in pain, what we want is not what other people want, and we don't know what they want, and they seem to expect us to know what it is that we're supposed to do, and we don't, and we end up shutting down. I know this happened to me a number of times, because I know that when I'm not in a good place, I don't want people to give me hugs. I don't want people to do all these things. But I also learned through trial and error and through, having to learn the hard way, that that's not what other people want. Like when I was a little girl and someone was upset, I would just walk away and leave them alone, because that's what I want people to do to me. And everybody would think that I was being mean and uncaring. But it wasn't. It was like, I was trying to do the right thing. And then if you ask somebody what they want, they get mad at you. And it's all very confusing. And there are all these expectations. So I think that's a misnomer, and that people with Asperger's are cold and unfeeling. It's not that. It's just that I think a lot of times, because I remember when I was younger, I think I was in my early 20s, or even with my mom. I think my mom is the first time I heard it, but then I heard it. I heard somebody else saying it, and like I think it was like I went to go see like one of those conferences where it was like a motivational speaker or whatever, and like the whole golden rule is, do you want others as you would have done unto yourself. And I realized a long time ago that that rule is wrong. You should do unto others as they would have done unto themselves, but you don't know what everybody wants done unto themselves. And so in my mind, you should find out. But people don't like that when you try to find out. It's weird to me. I don't understand that. But they expect you to know, you know. And then they also expect you to react to them doing to you, like trying to help you with things in a ways. And then when you get mad when they're doing things that don't make sense to you, like they think that you're being mean, or you know, or like if they're acting in a way that doesn't make sense to you and you don't react to it the way they want, or it makes you uncomfortable, or you feel unsure and you freeze up or you shut down, because it happens to me. Someone's I don't know what to do and I shut down, or kind of run away, because you're unsure and you don't want to make the other person uncomfortable. You're seen as like cold and heartless, or the fact that you just speak your mind and you just say things that you don't think they're rude. But of course, if people don't tell you what it is you're doing wrong because they expect you to know, then you're going to continue to get it wrong. Especially if they tell you way after the fact. Like I think that in some ways, I need Pavlovian like based kind of training. Like if I'm like interrupting you in the middle of you talking and to talk about one of my obsessions, and you tell me about it 3 days later, I'm not going to remember. I need, like, if you tell me while I'm doing it, then I'm going to start recognizing while I'm doing it, and I'll be less likely to do it. But if you tell me later, it's like I don't have that association to that specific event, and it's hard for me. And I explain these things to people, and they'll be like, well, and they'll start bringing up things that you've done to them in the past. And I'm like, this is not a war. I'm not trying to compete with you about who's done what and whatever. I'm just telling you that I just know who I am, and I know that if you tell me 3 days later, I'm just going to keep doing it, and it's going to bother you, and I don't want to upset you. So if we could just kind of work together, then we might be able to come to an understanding of conduct that will be appreciated on both sides, or amenable to both of us and beneficial to both people. But it doesn't usually ever work out that way. And that's difficult. So back to the whole thing of agenda. So the thing is that I think that most of society works as an agenda. So you're always trying to be on top, or the people that you're voting for, that you associate with, or whatever, you want them to be on top. And I think that can be like for us, where it's not like, I don't think it's about being on top, but like maybe, I'm not gonna think of anything good because I don't like sports, so I don't think I necessarily have that. But okay, maybe your family, like your, here's a good one. Like I remember when my brother got into a fight when he was a kid, and there was this other kid that jumped on top of him and started, like, he was this big fat kid, and he started like pummeling my brother, and I got mad and I kicked the kid until he got off my brother. So I definitely sided with my brother in that instance, but that's because like I like love my brother, and that other kid was hurting, like really hurting my brother, and I didn't like that. But the things that I don't understand is and they say it's because we have our short-term memories are weaker than our long-term memories. So, like, emotional pain doesn't last as long. So we'll get angry really fast in the moment, but we're not vindictive creatures. We might hold resentment over a lifetime of what we see as being taken advantage of or abuse. But, like, for instance, I was engaged in my mid-20s to this guy, and he cheated on me with my friend, and you know, he ended up telling me about it, and I was hurt by it and everything like that, but I forgave him. I didn't, when I say forgive, like, everybody makes the assumption that I didn't go back to him. I forgave him because I wanted to be able to move on to the next point in my life, and I realized that if I held anger towards him and the girl, then I wouldn't be able to get past it, so I went and I forgave them. And my sister didn't talk to me for 2 months for that, because she thought I should hate him or whatever. And I was like, why? What's the point? Like, I don't understand that. He messed up, whatever. I'm not with him anymore. I'm not saying that I will ever be back with him or that I necessarily think what he did was like the right thing or whatever. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that I'm not angry with him anymore, and I'm gonna like walk past it. And I never understood that, and I never really understood like a lot of things that happen, or like noticed it, like whether it be someone being like a little bit angry with me or bored when I'm talking, or like angry or jealous or whatever, or flirting with me. I never used to notice those things. Like even like right now, a good example of it is like on Facebook. A lot of guys I was friends with in high school, whatever, or not friends, like they were classmates. They're like getting in touch with me and telling me that they liked me, and I'm like, I thought they hated me. I remember thinking back, I was like, I thought all of you like really like full on hated me. And that's very weird to me. And then I started realizing, like, again, this is why I look at things as a game. Like, I realized, like, the whole courtship thing or whatever that happens, like, it's like this whole game of like it's all very indirect and passive aggressive, and people don't like it when you point out when they're being passive aggressive, FYI. And that if you don't play right, then it's you might send confusing signals, and then other people are always sending confused because you don't even know. Like unless someone tells you something, you're just like, it is what it is, or they hate me, or like me. Like if they were, I felt like they didn't like me because I swear to God, like they would like. What I remembered, like they were always ignoring me, or like not, and like they're like no, and that's very confusing to me. I don't know. So I think that what motivates us is not what motivates everybody else. Like if I could be left alone and just with occasional being able to go to like dance or talk to people a little bit and feel a little bit connected, if I could just be left alone to like read and do all like all the I won't even get into all the weird stuff right now that I like to do. But I do like to interact with people. I just don't like. Okay, I feel like this will give you. I know I keep cutting my own self off. My sisters always say when after like college, I wasn't so much into making friends. And my sister used to say I had friends by proxy. Like even in high school, I did this, but definitely more so after college. And the reason she said it's weird how people will notice these weird things about you, but not fully understand why, or even you won't, even as being your own self, won't fully understand why you're doing it. And the reason I like to have friends by proxy is because I had no real responsibility to them. So it wasn't that I was trying to be selfish. And I think I'm going to get into that. That will be my next video. And then I'll end the videos for today, and I'll do a whole nother volume, maybe tomorrow in a couple of days. But like the whole friend by proxy thing wasn't because I was trying to be selfish or once again any of these other labels that earthlings like to give us. It was because friendship I could, even back then before I knew why, just seemed chock full of like complications and things that didn't always make sense to me. And that if I was friends with her friends, then if I acted weird, if I disappeared for a long period of time due to obsessions or whatever, that they wouldn't get weirded out. Or even if I sometimes said things that like would be offensive to your friend, if they're just an acquaintance or a friend of my sister's, then the same expectations weren't there, or those or other things like expectations that have between two friends. I didn't have that same obligation, and then if I didn't do the things I weren't supposed to do, they wouldn't be as mad at me and stop being my friend, and that made life much easier for me. And again, I'm going to get into this a little bit more in the next video about societal expectations, especially for girls, and which I think is interesting of why this would not give us an earlier diagnosis for older girls like me. But why traversing these social, like, seeming like what they feel like constructs to us, it seems like almost like a minefield. And why I think a lot of times people think we're selfish and once again cold, or sometimes where they might think that we're oversensitive. And because I'll get into the whole sensory thing on a whole different video, but why people think we might be sensitive to other people, or or why we might, like I said, like seem cold or rude sometimes, or give off the wrong, whatever the, we'll give the wrong indication due to our body language. Because like I said, what motivates us is not what motivates other people. Like, I don't care if even if someone gave me $1 million now, I want to spend it. I might not give it. I don't know what I would do with it. Maybe I would try to give. I don't know. See, that doesn't seem like, I feel like trying to figure out what I would do with it seems contrived to me. Like, I know it would be good to go through the rest of my life without worrying about any money at all, but the money in and of itself doesn't seem important to me. And I know that doesn't make sense to any of you, and you're all trying to, in your mind, reconcile it. But maybe we'll try to delve into that a little bit deeper in another video, because this is probably going to end on me. Alright, so thank you for all tuning in, all you Earthlings and all you other Aspies and AspieGirls and autism-related neuro-atypical type people. Have a good day, and peace out. Bye.